This is a really exciting time in the life of our congregation when it comes to outreach and mission. We're preparing to launch our new community outreach center right next door at 1010 East Avenue. A lot of our supplies and furniture things have made their way into the building, and the ministries are starting to get set up. We're starting to recruit new volunteers. And so at this time, I want to invite forward Glenn Peck, who's been a longtime volunteer in our breakfast program ministry and who's leading the team in bringing that ministry back after shutting down so that we could open up the new space.
Good morning. This might be one of those times you want to get up and walk around. When I was asked to speak about the dining center, the request came with a sense of deja vu. I recalled having delivered a similar moment of mission some years ago. Searching the archives, I was able to find a copy. I would invite you to look it up yourselves, but you'll need a Sony Betamax and a black and white TV. I'm kidding, I think. In truth, the year was 2012, about 10 and a half years ago, and the occasion was the promotion of our 6th annual Dining Among Friends event. But unlike my offering today, I will be setting aside the concept of fundraising, and instead will be pondering the concept of connections. Put another way, I will not be asking you to open your wallets. I will be asking you to open your hearts. In preparation, I thought it might be useful to look back to my text from 2012 as a means of reminding myself where we were as a church and where I was as an individual with regard to outreach. For context, back then, Stephen was the new clergy on the block. And I remember being impressed that even as a newbie, he alone among staff had insight to question the wisdom of allowing me to step up to a live microphone at church. Of course, now Pat's the new guy, and maybe he's having similar thoughts, but I digress. For my part, in 2012, I was not yet an active volunteer at the dining center, serving only as a member on their board in those days. I had a career then, so the only time I spent at the dining center was on Saturdays for what my wife Lynn and I called a listening ministry. And while the pay may have been better on the weekdays, that salary was meager when compared to the rewards of a single Saturday. So when I stood at the lectern back then, I talked about the hours, days, and weeks of preparation that went into a single fundraising event. Thinking today about our newly renovated dining and caring space and our community outreach center in general, we can add the term years to those hours, days, and weeks, can't we? Back then, I offered repeated and rhetorical questions. Are we doing enough? Can we ever do enough? Back then, I tossed out some stats, like the number of meals we served in 2012 versus 2011. We don't know yet how many meals we'll be able to serve in 2023. We only know that the need is greater than ever. Back then I quoted Jesus, who said, "The poor you will always have with you." And those words ring true today. Back then I spoke of a dining center guest whom I befriended, and whom I always looked forward to seeing when he came in. Vandy, as I knew him, but he was probably known better to his friends as Syracuse, was not a regular guest, but our chance meetings were always special, and I made a point of spending as much time with him as I could. He talked of the gospel, he talked of life on the streets. He expressed his unending gratitude for the welcoming space that was our dining center. We were brothers in Christ. We had a connection. I saw Vandy in 2019 at St. Joseph's House of Hospitality, where a memorial service was being held for another of our dining center guests. Even from across the room, I could tell Vandy had been drinking, but I don't believe it was those spirits that emboldened him to invite himself up to the front of the room in mid-service to bang out an impromptu, if unsolicited, sermon on the fly. I caught up with him after the service. He talked, I listened. We still had our connection. We cared about each other, and we cared for each other. On this night, he showed his care for me as he walked with me back to my Jeep. "Tough neighborhood," he said. "Not their camera ain't cheap." He asked if I would take his picture, and I did so with pleasure. Sadly, he never saw that photograph, and I never saw my friend again. Vandy died last year, circumstances unknown. We had lost our connection. I learned of his passing almost by chance in a meeting here with Pat some months later. I hope to post Vandy's picture in our new dining center to remind me not only of him, but of this. We are told to look into the eyes of Christ. We are told to look into the eyes of our neighbors to see the face of Christ. I have looked and I have seen. So with regard to the opening of the Dining and Caring Center, the question on the table is this: where might you like to make a connection? You know, so many people have asked me, how many days a week are you going to be open? My response in so many words is usually, I don't know, you tell me. That is to say, the amount of service we can provide will be in direct correlation with the number of volunteers we can recruit. We'll have a myriad of opportunities in the kitchen, in the dining area, in laundry, in hair care, in greeting, maybe some off-hour tasks like food pickup. Can't volunteer every week? We'll have some teams that rotate out once a month. Maybe you can fill our need for on-call substitutes. Are you a snowbird? You can be like our friend Patrick Fulford, who I know is watching, and who I also know is just chomping at the bit to leave the comforts of the Sunshine State so he can rejoin our Friday team. The possibilities are numerous. If you don't know where you might fit in, and that's okay, my suggestion would be this: stop in and see us when we're open. Come in for a cup of coffee, and we'll show you around. Make a connection with us, and maybe together we can make a connection with others. Friends, we are so looking forward to the opening of the doors of our new space, and we are anxious to embrace the connections that those open doors will foster. Just last month, as he has done in previous Decembers, Stephen shared the eloquent words of Howard Thurman. You know the ones. Today, as we consider what might be, I stand before you to affirm those words and to remind us all, the work of Christmas has begun. Thank you.